There we go. Welcome to Reading with Robin, the evening edition, we'll call it. My guest, Charlotte Wood, is the author of The Weekend. It's just out in the US, I think, a week or so. And no, great. I turned off my notifications, but apparently not. So Charlotte and I was saying we get used to a whole bunch of stuff in a whole new world. And I remember when this book came, because I think I sent you it, or maybe it put up on Instagram. I was so immediately drawn to the cover, drawn to the story. And, I knew that it would be a winner. And it is. Charlotte Wood is the author of 6 novels and 2 books of nonfiction. Her novel, The Natural Way of Things, won the 2016 Stellar Prize and the 2016 Novel of the Year in her native Australia, and was joint winner of the Australian Prime Minister's Literary Award for Fiction. That's exciting. You can visit her at charlottewood.com.au, and I'm very excited to have you on. The book's out by Riverhead. They only put out the best books ever, honestly. And
thank
I'm
you,
happy to be speaking to you. Welcome. So it's Thursday here and Friday there. And that just never gets old to me. Like, what's it look like on Friday? What's going on in Australia? What's happening there?
The sun is just sort of coming, it's 8 o'clock in the morning-ish.
Yeah.
And it's a sunny day. We're in winter. We're just at the end of winter. So, my book is, being sent out in the States as a beach read, and it's wonderful. And it's got that beautiful, beautiful cover that Riverhead did.
So beautiful. It is really
perfect,
stand out.
really.
It is. Look at this.
So it's weird to be talking in like my winter, your summer, morning, night, it's kind of crazy pandemic land.
I mean, isn't that kind of an illustration of just what we're doing? Like, it's up, it's down, it's in, it's out, but the good news is everybody's reading. People are looking for books that maybe they haven't heard of. And that's one of the things I love about Reading with Robin. And it's funny to me because, I mean, we're so aware of so many of the books that are coming out, but there are a lot of people who sort of stick to what they know, and then they just get so excited to somebody who's new to them. And that's what I love to do. And I was saying to Charlotte before we started, I mean, I love the bookcases. I love seeing what's on. I sometimes like to play guess that title, but it's a little too far. Although I see yours because they pop.
Yeah, I'm not going to show you the total chaos in this room, but I was like, oh, there they are. I'll stick them up there.
Okay. Now, all we need to see is this. We don't have to ever see what's there. Although sometimes, luckily, but by mistake, sometimes, depending on which device you're on, if you flip it by mistake, it's a whole other view.
We don't want that in here.
It can happen. It can happen. So I always love to start with, and there won't be any spoilers because the book is just out here, and so I wouldn't do that. And this is such a great book club pick, or just, not everybody's in a book club. And when I say book club, I use that very loosely. Your friends, you want to have something different to talk about. A lot of friends are Skyping or, Zooming or whatever. And the conversation can get a little, nothing much is new, hopefully, in some ways. So like, pick up a book to talk about. It doesn't have to be a book club, but this book will really, I guess if you're being honest with your friends, you could have some really great discussion about this book.
I've heard that it has done that with groups of friends. I mean, the women in the book are in their 70s. They've been friends for 40 years. Fascinating to me how many women have said, well, we're in our 30s, but we started having these really big conversations as a result of the book about how we'll be in 20, 30 years, with each other. I've had older women say, wow, how did you know that, about us? And, I'm in my mid-50s. I was going to say my early 50s.
You say whatever you want. It's all fiction. Charlotte, go for it.
Okay, I'm 22.
Yeah, 22.
And, I was sort of forecasting, I guess, what I might be like in 20 years' time. So it's been really, really gratifying to see how women have responded to the book. It's been out in Australia for you know, coming up to a year in October, but
Oh,
it
so
just
you've
came
had
out
feedback. Yeah.
yeah. So and luckily I got to tour here before, you know, the pandemic, but it's also just come out in the UK.
Yes.
And there, you know, it's been kind of amazing response there. So I just love that it speaks to women about something that's really important to us. You know, our friendships are often the things that survive the longest, you
Mm-hmm.
know, that sometimes outlast marriages or, you know, husbands' lives, even in the case of the women in the book.
Right.
So you know, I wasn't aware of that when I was writing it, but it's turned out to be a book that has sort of really touched a nerve, which is fantastic.
Well, I can see why. I mean, so friendships are always important, but the people that we really rely on, and it's such a bizarre time, you really need that sense of community, however you can connect with it. And also part of and it's where I am in my head, is really evaluating friendships. And one of my favorite parts, I'm not going to spoil anything. It's in the beginning where I think, was it Charlotte? I'm Charlotte, listen to me. So forget who's speaking here, if it was Jude or Wendy, but she says, whoever it was said, it was exhausting being friends. Had they ever been able to tell each other the truth? And you do want, I mean, there are some friends that it's more easy, you know, more easily, truth telling comes more easily. And then there are other friends. And in this book, there are 4, and they lose their dear friend, and also talking about how the dynamics of a group will shift, which is huge. And that can sometimes be from somebody moving away or, you know, a change. This one's, you know, a rather permanent change. So, you know, talking about again, why there's just so much conversation to have. But so it's been out for a year where you are there in Australia. So what are you hearing from people? Like you said some of it, but I'm curious what was surprising maybe, or did you hear what you thought you would be hearing?
What's been surprising is how it does seem to speak to people at all these different ages, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had women say to me, so as you say, I'll just sort of explain that these women, Jude, Wendy, and Adele, have come together for this weekend at the beach house of their friend Sylvie, who has died, and they have to clean out her house for sale. And so they're all in grief, basically. She's died sort of several months before this, and they're kind of lost to each other now. They've been very close for all these decades, but they find that without Sylvie now, they don't know how to be with each other. They don't know how to negotiate this dynamic that used to work really kind of smoothly. And they're realizing now it's because Sylvie was the one who kind of oiled the troubled waters. If something went wrong, you could say to Sylvie, why is she behaving like that? And she'd say, oh, don't worry, it's because of this, or, you know, just forget about that, or that, or she'd say to one of them, you know, you shouldn't be so hard on her, you know. So, but this all seemed to happen in a fairly unconscious way. So now they're suddenly conscious that there's this huge gap between them, and they don't really know how to negotiate it anymore. And little things that they would have let slide before seem really to cause a lot of tension now. So I guess one of the things that people have talked about is the kind of the way that the book recognizes sort of micro emotions.
Oh, interesting.
I had actually I had a beautiful, I didn't see it because I'm not on Twitter, but Marion Keyes, the writer,
Yes,
sort of raved about it the other day, and she said,
aww,
she used those words, the micro emotions. And I love that because it's about the things that you sort of don't know how, they almost pass by, but as they kind of accrete and build up, they can sort of start to calcify a friendship, you know, and you sort of almost
yes.
get to a point where you don't know how to get back to a kind of alive friendship again. And I think one of the
Calcifying,
things
I like that. Yeah,
it's
yeah.
sort of about how I feel like we we need to let each other change, and that can be really hard, you know, because sometimes if our friends change, then we feel like we're being left behind, or they don't value us anymore, or and then if we change, sometimes we feel like we can't bring our friends with us. And so I think there are a lot of little moments of sort of grief, and other people have talked about how there's sort of a need for forgiveness all the time in friendships. These tiny little sort of needles of, where you might think, oh, that was a bit harsh or something, but you need to be able to integrate those and forgive those, and understand that that's not, I think if you don't pay attention to these tiny little things, they can sort of build up without you knowing. And then you might end up in this situation where these three women are feeling like, I can't even reach you anymore. And, you know, without any spoilers, it kind of,
No
the story
spoilers.
is, I guess, about how can they survive as friends this really tough time together after what they've been through, all these they've been through a lot of dramas,
so many years,
illnesses,
yes.
and, you know, marriages ending and grief and all the rest of it. So they, you know, they need to see, do we still value what we have had all this time?
Oh,
And I
it's
think
so
that's
interesting.
a big deal for lots of women. You know?
It is. And those friendships, like you say, can just outlast so many other life cycle things. And there's so much history. And what's interesting too is how you talk about the forgiveness and the constant need for it, possibly, or hurting somebody, or in a small way, but those things do build up. And then seemingly, what happened to this friendship? I mean, they lost their friend, you know, they lost their friend in this book, but clearly there were hurts along the way, secrets, other alliances. Again, we don't give anything away in the weekend, and it's out here in the US by Charlotte Wood, and visit charlottewood.com.au, and you can find her also on Instagram. Don't look for her on Twitter, which you're wise. And
I used to be on Twitter, you know, for a long time, and I just I can't.
Yeah,
you know,
well, it's nice
it
to
can
know
be
when,
overwhelming.
yeah, it's good to it's good to know when to cut bait on that. But you can find her, and you can find her right here. And it's such a thoughtful book with pearls all over the place. And women's friendship, you're welcome. Women's friendship is something that, you know, really speaks to certainly a lot of women. And my friendships are, you know, I've done a lot of books about friendship and women in friendship, a lot of nonfiction. It's a very important topic. And so when this book came, I was like, there's a lot to talk to Charlotte about. And there's always the secrets. And also with a group, 3 is a hard number. You know, 4, 5, whatever, 2, 3 is really hard number. So they lose their dear friend, and now there's 3. So right there, it's tough. I mean, with 3.
And, you know, I'm interested in how those kind of allegiances can shift and move. So, you know, I think I can't remember which one, maybe Adele says, when there were 4 of us, there was a symmetry.
Mm-hmm.
There was sort of an equality and an evenness, and now there's 3, it's like out of balance.
Right.
And, you know, there are times in the book where 2 of them will kind of roll their eyes about the other one, but then, you know, 5 minutes later, that eye rolling has shifted, you know. So I wanted to look at these moments from, it's got this quite shifting point of view, right? So I wanted there to be this ability to look at one moment from 3 different perspectives and show how we can so misunderstand each other.
Yeah.
Not through malice or intention, but just through maybe not paying attention or being a little oversensitive, or it also shows how their own kind of anxieties about themselves, they kind of attribute them to the other people. So Adele, who's the actress, who's been out of work for a year, she says, well, she knows that the others have always thought that she's frivolous.
Mm-hmm.
And she knows that she's kind of frivolous, but she has other things to offer, and she's kind of a bit defensive about that. She's really fit and healthy and active, and she's got a great body that she's really proud of. And the others kind of think, oh God, she's, you know,
here she goes again. Yeah.
really can't get away with wearing that kind of stuff anymore. But they also kind of, you know, a bit realize that, you know, I should have kept up my fitness better. And so there's this sort of hopefully quite poignant kind of reversals all the time, or shifts in their allegiances with each other, that really speak to their own feelings about themselves. They kind of project a lot onto each other.
Which is what happens, when they're, you can tell usually when somebody is upset about something or is sharing a little bit too much about another friend, that those are their own fears, worries, but doesn't seem like that in the moment sometimes. And that's where hurt feelings come in, and misunderstandings, and the need to constantly be apologizing when we choose our friends in some way. It's an interesting dynamic. And forget who I talked to about friendship. One of the authors in nonfiction was talking about friendships that it's not necessarily that they've ended and it was it had served its purpose or its time. It doesn't mean it was not good. If it was good for a while, that it failed, it just had reached its natural conclusion. But we're not giving any secrets away about The Weeknd, and going through their friends' things. And then I forget which one of them talks about her sparse, empty apartment and not leaving that for anybody, because that does bring those thoughts up too. Like someone's going through your stuff, which is an interesting thing.
Yeah, and I've noticed that even in my own friends now, some of one particularly who lost her husband very suddenly, and decided she didn't want to live in their house anymore, and she cleared out all this stuff, and her kind of response to that has been to in her new apartment have this incredibly orderly, sparse. She said, I love nothing more than throwing stuff out, because I do not want anyone to have to go through all my crap and think, oh, is she keeping this for some special reason? And she said, when it's just rubbish. So, but also I think it was very painful for her to, have to go through an enormous amount of material and stuff and things, and the emotional weight of that was very very hard to bear. So Jude in this story, who's the ex-restaurateur, she's highly organized, highly controlled. Her friends would say controlling. She just thinks she's really efficient and gets things done, and she's very generous, and they think, well, she's generous, but she has to tell you all the time how generous she is. So there's all these perceptions about ourselves that I guess one of the things the book is about for me is whether we ever really know ourselves. That, and I used to think that as we get older, you inevitably begin to know yourself better, but I don't really think that anymore.
Well, it depends on the narrative and the stories we tell ourselves. So if we tell ourselves, and then how much you take in from outside of yourself,
and
or what you wish.
A big reality check is coming from your friends. You think, oh, I'm this kind of person, and then every now and again, for me, there's been this kind of sort of little judder of the world where a friend, and sometimes very painfully, has said, that's not the kind of person you are. Look at this.
Oh dear.
And it's like, oh, I have to really reevaluate who I am, and are they right or am I right? Or I think our friendships are so important, and they don't get the attention that our romantic relationships have, or our sibling relationships, or our parental relationships. But I feel like your friendships can form you just as deeply as your family situation. And one of the things I was interested in writing about these friendships is these really long-term friendships, and how they kind of do become like family. They are. So you choose your friends, but after 40 years, I think one of them says, what is a friendship after all this time? It's kind of immutable. It's set.
Yes.
Not something I can even question of whether I want to be in it or not. I just am. They are a part of me in this way that is really kind of primitive almost. It's deep and it's immutable, and it's sometimes hard. So you know, but
Right.
also there's all this deep value that maybe they don't kind of recognize enough in the moment.
I wonder if anybody does specific friend therapy. Like if, you know, you think
Mm.
of friends going to therapy together to try and work something out with a neutral party, but the way you do with a romantic relationship or, you know, sibling or any of that, that could be a big business.
Yeah,
could be, did
it
you
could be
see, I'm sorry.
pretty scary, right? That could be like,
Yeah,
whoa,
yeah, but like
really
how
intense.
interesting, like French, I mean, not now, but like, you know, weekends away with, you know, the weekend of therapy with your friends.
Do you know, I've had so many women say to me, oh my God, I'm going away with my friends, you know, my oldest friends for a weekend in a month. And now I'm reading this, I'm like, whoa. But, you
Yeah,
know, or
yeah.
sometimes they are away together, reading the book on the weekend that they are away together. It's
That's
like this
very
kind of
cool.
weird meta level thing.
I love that. And also, it is a really good way in. I mean, for people who want to have some deeper conversations within their friendships, you get everybody this book. What'd you think? What'd you think of it? Why are you asking? I don't know. What did you think? Did you see Minato Sao and Anne Friedman's book on friendship? It's a beautiful book.
No,
Yeah, they have
no,
Call
I
Your,
know them. Yeah,
yeah,
Call Your Girlfriend.
Call
They
Your
interviewed
Girlfriend.
me for my last book, actually.
Oh, well, they should do this one too. This is like right up there. I had them on to talk about friendship, you know, when they talk about
Yeah.
their little chasm of a, you know, situation where they go away to try and figure it out and they don't want to talk about it. It was really, it's a really
Ah,
beautiful book. So yeah, I was
that sounds
thinking,
great.
yeah, I was thinking of theirs while I was reading this. And I do think there's so much evaluation of friendships. And I have some long-standing friendship groups. And one of them, we get together on Sundays to Zoom because we used to get together we've been doing birthdays for 34 years or so.
Yeah.
And there's also sometimes why you get together as friends in the first place, whether it's children or as couples or neighborhoods or whatever brings you together initially. And sometimes those things, you know, people do change and sometimes friendships don't survive that. And we'll talk about Wendy and the dog. I was like, oh
Yeah.
my God, I bet they don't know she's coming with the dog.
So Wendy is the sort of, so these women are all kind of feminist, you know, two of them don't have children. Wendy has adult children. So I guess I wanted to look at older women who aren't grandmas,
Mhm.
mothers, you know, sort of defined by their family relationships. So Wendy is this feminist academic scholar, public intellectual. She's written books that are still really on university lists around the world. You know, she's been very powerful in her intellectual life. It's only kind of creeping up on her, the idea that maybe she's writing another book in her head. She's, you know, really kind of on fire, she thinks intellectually, but it's dawning on her slowly that the kind of public world is not that interested in her work anymore. But she can't really afford to look at that idea. Anyway, she's very intellectual, but she has the big love of her life. There are two loves of her life: work and her dog, Finn. Her
Mhm.
husband, Lance, was the other big love of her life, and he died about 20 years ago. She has two adult children who she sort of, you know, she loves. She thinks she's been a great mother. She's given them all this freedom. Kind of slowly trickles through the narrative that maybe her children don't see it that way, that
Mhm.
maybe their freedom that she gave them maybe might be a little more akin to neglect,
Neglect,
possibly.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but anyway, she's got this dog, Finn, who is, I think, 18 years old. He's really decrepit. He's falling apart. She's been told by various people that it's time to, you know, let him go and put him to sleep. And she just could not tolerate that because she loves him so deeply. And he's, you know, he's not really welcome at the beach house where they're trying to clean it up for sale because he's, you know, a little bit incontinent. He's demented. He's deaf and half blind, and you know,
Poor
he sort of
puppy.
stumbles around the place, and he kind of is a mirror for them all in some ways. Jude, for example, just cannot stand the sight of him because it's just this disorder and chaos, which is not something she tolerates in her life. Adele's kind of just slightly repulsed by this kind of decrepitude. But Wendy just loves him almost bodily. She just, you know, and she just thinks this is just natural. He's just a natural creature reaching the end of his life. I don't know what everyone's so uptight about. But Finn becomes this kind of receptacle of other people's fears and horrors about aging.
Yeah.
But each of the women has a kind of realization about herself because of Finn. I mean, it's a kind of private realization that the dog sort of brings to them. So he's a kind of slightly otherworldly, you know, he delivers what a really great writer in Australia, Amanda Laurie, has called messages from another realm, which is sort of sensibility that there are other ways of thinking about this material world. You know, he just sort of reflects things that are unseen and unspoken and kind of difficult to put into language for them.
That's what dogs do. So I was, you know, that is what dogs do. When I was, again, no spoilers, and I'm chatting with Charlotte Wood. The Weekend is out in the States and also in the UK, and it's been out in Australia for a year. And go to charlottewood.com.au. The different covers are there, I think, right? Or the
they are. Yeah.
They're all beautiful, and
they are.
It's just such a treat. I think my girlfriends are getting this. One of the groups, anyway. The other one, of course they will. And then we'll have what to talk about, because I do think we need some more topics. And I also love the part about, somebody mentions Daniel, who doesn't read fiction, that he does, but men don't read fiction, and the whole idea of not having time for it. I've had this conversation with people. So it's bookishly bookish too.
That was me having a little, you know.
I love that.
And who, you know, so many men say, "Oh, my wife loves your books. My wife has read everything." And you go, "Oh," and they said, "I mean, I don't have time to read fiction myself."
Not, of course.
It's like, oh no, all you need is time, you know. But I'm too busy. I find that so funny. So Daniel, who's Jude's lover, her married lover, he does read fiction, and he's very amused by men who don't read fiction.
Yes.
And they say that they don't have time, and that's a huge joke. But he said they're just terrified that it might show them something about themselves.
I love that. I like that was your little poke. It jumped right out at me. I love that kind of, those little jewels in a book. And before I let you go, what are you reading?
Oh, well, I've actually just read, I don't have it here to show you, but Sigrid Nunez's new book.
Oh, I haven't read it yet. Yeah.
Oh, it's coming in September, I think.
Yes.
And I luckily got my hands on an advance copy, and it is called What Are You Going Through?
Yeah.
I need the right title. I love her. I loved The Friend, speaking of dogs.
Yes.
It's a fantastic book.
I have it here somewhere. I just haven't read it.
And
it's here.
Cover.
Yes.
Another Riverhead book.
The Riverhead, yes. I don't miss any.
Cover.
I don't miss anything that Riverhead has usually, not intentionally. They have exquisite taste over there. They really do.
And my mind's gone blank.
That's okay.
I've just fallen in love with the books of Joan Silber, an American writer who hasn't been all that well known over here, but her latest book, Improvement, is wonderful.
Oh, good. I'm writing it down.
Yeah, I think it's been out for a while, but I just read it earlier in the year, and that's one of my big favorites. So,
oh, good.
You know,
Joan Silber.
Joan Silber. She lives in New York, and she's a fantastic writer.
Good to know.
So many of them out there.
I never have enough titles. I write them all down, even if there's absolutely no hope. I'm delusional, and I think I'm going to get to all of them. But that's why I only read the good ones. And this is a good one to read, The Weekend by Charlotte Wood.
Thank you.
This is such a pleasure talking to you.
So lovely to talk to you.
Enjoy your day, and we're winding down here, and I'm looking forward to sharing this with the Reading with Robin audience and everyone, and please keep in touch. My dream, when we can travel again, is definitely doing an Australian tour, the readers that want to come.
Well, Yeah, please let me know when you come, because
absolutely.
I can show you around, and
it's high on the list. Yes, it is high on the list.
Well, I'm supposed to be in America, well, I was supposed to be there last week, and but we're safe and lucky and everything's fine. But yeah, sending lots of love to everyone in America.
And back at you. Yes, when we can plan and travel, that's what we will do. Just planning it in my head. Yes, stay well and happy reading. And thank you so much.
Thanks, Robin.